the lights on. Welcome to FFRF's Ask an Atheist. I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor.
And I'm Dan Barker. Annie Laurie and I are co-presidents of the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
I'm Andrew Seidel. And today on Ask an Atheist, we're going to go over a quick overview of our recent convention. And afterwards, we'll answer some of the questions that you might have.
Last weekend, we held the Freedom from Religion Foundation's 40th annual convention right here in Madison, Wisconsin. And the convention hosted more than 700 attendees from all over the United States, and at least one from England, who heard presentations for many freethinkers, activists, and leaders in the free thought community. It really was a fun time.
And actually, we had members from 48 states, plus the District of Columbia. We had people from Canada as well. And this is a record for the Freedom from Religion Foundation. We've never had almost all the states. We've usually gotten up to 40, 42, but we had over 709 pre-registered, probably 750 people. We filled that room that had 800 chairs, so it was really a great turnout.
It was a huge convention. There were so many people there. It was
a great success and one of my favorite conventions.
It's really exciting. Just that energy in the room. A lot of people were there, first-time members, first time to be in a group where you could say whatever you wanted to anyone you wanted. That was really, really nice.
Yeah, and as exhausting as the conventions are, it's always kind of recharging to get to connect with our members and hear how excited they are about all the work that we're doing. It's a lot of fun. It's like recharging the batteries a little bit.
Yes, and Andrew, I know you had wanted to make a couple of comments about the convention.
Well, I just loved the speaker lineup this year. I thought it was really fascinating, and it was interesting and new in a couple ways. First, this year we had a lot of artists, which I thought was interesting. We had a sculptor, a playwright, a couple of songwriters.
Poets.
Poets, yes. And then if you include writers, it was a large percentage of our speakers were artists. And then we also had a lot of women speakers.
We had a majority of women speakers, actually, and nobody even mentioned that to me until you did just before the show. And how did that happen?
Well, I mentioned, of course, Friday night was all females.
I'm the convention planner. I'm just patting myself on the back.
That was the thing. Friday was all women.
All women. So I did
think it
announce.
was interesting that nobody said anything. At least it didn't where are the men? It was obviously very appreciated.
Well, you weren't listening to me because I'm a guy, I guess. But I did get up and say, tomorrow we're actually going to have some male speakers
I didn't hear
on
that.
Friday night. So
yeah, we started off with, we'll hear a few of them today. And then we're going to have to do another highlights next week on Ask an Atheist because it's so early we don't have all the photos yet, all the footage ready. So we're just going to see a few of the speakers. But we did start the whole afternoon and evening on Friday were women.
And I thought it was just really interesting because one of the big criticisms, of secularism in the atheist movement is it's this idea that it's sexist. And I think FFRF does a great job of refuting that just in the way we operate.
Well, and of course, FFRF is not sexist, and it was
co-founded by
my mother and myself, very firm feminists. We have usually had a majority of staffers who are women. I think we're 50-50. I'd have to look at it now.
Our director of operations is a woman?
Well, yeah, usually we have more women than men among our staff. That's not true of the membership, but there is no question that we are women-friendly.
Yeah, half the legal team is women?
Yes, so...
and half of the co-directors.
Half the co-directors.
So, I've always thought that free thought is women's best ally. And of course, the fight for women's rights has been fighting religious oppression in our laws, so it's a very natural alliance. And I think that there may be individual sexist or leadership that is sexist in some ways or others. I think that, but in terms of supporting women's rights, there's no question that the secular movement has always been behind abortion rights, birth control, women's equality. So just getting those faces up there at some other people's conventions might be the issue.
Yeah, and it was just a great example of how FFRF is kind of leading the charge on that, and I really appreciated it. So should we take a look at some of the videos?
Yeah, so I think that we are going to start with our really major awardee this is the first year that the Freedom from Religion Foundation has bestowed the Henry H. Zumach Award for Freedom from Fundamentalism. And this is a $10,000 award endowed by our member, Hank Zumach, himself an activist for separation of church and state. And he gave us, FFRF, the award last year, which was very wonderful. And then he's turned over the award giving to the Freedom from Religion Foundation, endowing it with starters for $100,000. So every year we'll have at least a $10,000 honoree, somebody really special. And we immediately thought of Maryam Namazie, who is a London-based secularist founder of One Law for All, ex-Muslims of Great Britain. Dan, you and I went to the historic
The
conference in London, the largest gathering of ex-Muslims in the nation. And so I think that we do
in the world.
In the world. And she's formerly from Iran, a real ardent secularist and feminist. I think we have a little excerpt of her talk.
It's interesting how anyone who's regressive and reactionary suddenly becomes a Muslim leader, and we all have to listen to them. They're heads of the East London Mosque. They were incensed because one of our placards said East London Mosque incites the murder of LGBT, and it does. And that's what they're calling Islamophobic. And again, the way things are phrased just shows how much we live in a world where cultural relativism reigns supreme. And every homophobe and reactionary can say that they're a Muslim leader, and we all have to listen to them.
So actually, the video of the speech may be up within a couple of days at our website, and all of the speeches may be up soon. And we also reprint the full text in Free Thought Today, but that's just a teaser. And who else do we have?
We also have the Chicago-based blogger and podcaster Kimberly Veal, who is the executive director of the Black Nonbelievers of Chicago. And in her presentation, she described what happened when she first started questioning religion, the religion particularly, obviously, that she was brought up in. Let's take a look.
And what transpired at the age of 16, after being forced to go to church one Sunday. Well, the pastor made a mistake and opened up the mic. And so, it made its way to me. And so I questioned him, and I said, is it right for parents to force their children to attend church? And he said, well, when a child turns 12, they're able to make those decisions for themselves. And I said, okay, thank you. It was nice meeting you guys, and you'll never see me again.
And so Kimberly also went on to talk about how to attract more minorities, African Americans to the Free Thought movement. She made a lot of really good remarks, and you'll be able to read that in Free Thought Today and look at her speech later at our website.
It was an interesting talk.
And speaking of minorities, one of the nation's most internationally acclaimed orchestral and film composers is Brent Michael Davids, who also happens to be an American Indian atheist. He's part of the Mohican tribe.
And he jokes that he's the second to the last of the Mohicans.
Yeah, he said, I'm the second to the last Mohican. He described this light bulb moment when he woke up to what religion is really all about.
But then I started to realize that there obviously is a difference between what church people think versus the religious claims. And then I started to think further that if that were true, then there's no single Christianity. There must be as many different Christianities as there are Christians. And if that's true, then I thought there cannot be one true religion. It's impossible. It just cannot exist. So,
I got to talk to him quite a bit, and he told me that he was nominated for a Grammy and lost it to Yo-Yo Ma, which is, that's kind of an achievement in itself.
Well, he's listed among the top 25 American composers, along with Bernstein and Stephen Foster.
Well, the Kennedy Center had a 25-year recognition of genius composers, and Brent Michael Davids is one of those 25, so it's quite an accomplishment.
And it's too bad that we didn't figure out a way to pipe in some of his music when we introduced him, but in our upcoming TV show, Free Thought Matters, that'll be
We'll be playing
debuting
some of
next
that.
year. We'll play some of that. And then I was very pleased that we got to get Michelle Goldberg, who is an author and columnist with Slate, and there's her picture. But just before the convention, it was announced that she had just received a very coveted new job as joining the roster of columnists, op-ed columnists for the New York Times. And she's the author of Kingdom Coming, and also a very hard-hitting book about the war against women's reproductive rights. And she actually started work at the New York Times on Monday. She was at our convention. We were the first to get her after she was an announced new speaker, so let's listen to this little preview.
It's a long-time truism of Washington politics that personnel is policy. And the personnel in this administration are overwhelmingly very, very conservative Catholics or fundamentalist Christians who are using, various government departments to restrict funding to family planning providers, both here and abroad, to reinstitute funding for abstinence education, to launch attacks on the Johnson Amendment, which is the amendment that stops churches from basically turning themselves into political action committees.
So we again will have the full text of her remarks in Free Thought Today in the video online soon.
It was a great speech.
And then the highlight of Saturday afternoon was when
Saturday morning.
the attorneys gave their
I think
speech.
you meant the whole convention. Right?
Was that it? That's right, it was, because we were running around for so many different things. What time of day was it even? But our own attorneys, the FFRF attorneys, gave a riveting, comprehensive report about all the activities and the thousands of issues they're dealing with. And here's a video that they presented during that report, which was prepared by Bruce Johnson in advance, showing a brief overview of some of the many complaints that we made during the past year.
A senior group at the Rec Center had planned a trip to the Ark Encounter and Creation Museum in April. The Wisconsin-based Freedom from Religion Foundation got a complaint and sent this letter down to the town asking for the trip to be canceled, telling the town government should not hold events that benefit religious organizations.
It's a problem because the government was organizing the trip.
I think the exact terminology was that it's not really a classroom, it's truly more legislative.
Well, that's absolutely wrong. We sent a 3-page letter detailing the court cases that have found that school board prayers are unconstitutional.
Although Coach Slaughter says the ceremony wasn't part of practice, Cavell argues it creates an uncomfortable environment for students who don't believe the same thing.
There is a lot of pressure on students in general to conform. I think that pressure is heightened in the context of athletics.
Ryan Jane, an attorney with the Freedom from Religion Foundation in Madison, says the group first reached out to the city in 2007. That's when a Menominee resident came to the foundation with a complaint.
Even if you have a city with 99% of the populace being Christian and supporting a Christian nativity, that 1% is relying on the constitutional protections to say that the government must remain neutral on this question.
But not everyone in town agrees with the display.
A Taos resident contacted us last year informing us that there was this cross on public property and asking for our help in getting it taken down.
According to the letter the foundation sent to the town manager, the foundation says the cross is an unconstitutional endorsement of religion.
A Neosho local contacted the Freedom from Religion Foundation and told them about the 60-foot Latin cross that resides on the western knoll of the Big Spring Park. The FFRF wrote a letter to Neosho Mayor Charles Collinsworth asking him to remove the cross or move it to a more private location, such as private property, right away.
A separation of church and state actually benefits all of us, the religious and the non-religious alike.
Last week, the Freedom from Religion Foundation put this letter in front of Chancellor Vitter telling him they think it's wrong for the university to allow it, promote it, and support the tweets.
What Coach Freeze is doing is promoting his personal religious beliefs over all other religious beliefs and religion generally over non-religion.
We got all those violations corrected except for the Taos, New Mexico one, which we're still working on.
Yeah, and also we had statistics from Rebecca Margaret, our legal director, on the number of victories since the last convention. It was over 200.
More than 200 without going to court.
Without going to court, which is always
education.
our hopeful goal.
Exactly.
We don't go out seeking court cases. With rare exceptions, we want to end the violation through education or persuasion, and we often do.
But we've also won 5 court cases in the last year, too.
Yes, that's right. And do you want to tell people, if they have a state church violation, how to contact us?
Sure. The easiest thing to do is to go to FFRF's website and go to the legal tab and click on report a state church violation. It brings up a form with all the information that we need to help you correct the state church violation. That is the quickest, fastest way to help us help you. And after Michelle Goldberg gave her really great speech, which was a little bit terrifying in some respects, Steve Pinker came on. And for those of you who don't know, he's FFRF's honorary president. He is a preeminent evolutionary psychologist, a wordsmith, author of The Blank Slate, Better Angels of Our Nature.
I'm going to begin with some big questions. Why is the world filled with woe? How can we make it better? How do we give meaning and purpose to our lives? Now, these may seem like unanswerable questions, but all too many people have answers to them.
I think we had an audio problem.
But he's got a great new book coming out, and it's called Enlightenment now. And the thing that was exciting about this speech was that it was so uplifting as he was giving it.
Stephen Pinker is our honorary president, and we were invited him last year, and he said, my new book will be on your topic, so let's come this year. And then the book wasn't ready, and over dinner I happened to find out how that happened. We were saying, where were we when we realized what was going to happen with the election? And he said wherever he was, that's when he realized that some of his book had to be rewritten. Because the book is it's a follow-up to his book, The Better Angels of Our Nature, in which he, as a psychologist and social scientist, points out that there's been huge strides in human well-being
in decline,
since the 1800s, and he documented. But what he does in Enlightenment now is point out that the reason why we've had these huge strides are because of Enlightenment values. I mean, he's connecting the dots. And so when Trump was elected, he realized he had to kind of make some changes to the book because people were feeling like this was not progress.
Sure.
And he also, of course, talks about things where we're not making progress, but even there, global warming and nuclear disarmament, there is gradual progress in some of the things we're doing. So.
Well, I talked to Stephen privately. We did a little TV interview with him, and he said, it's kind of like if you look at the stock market every day, there's some days when you're going to be really depressed, right? But if you step back and look at the big picture, it goes like this, and eventually it's going up. So yeah, there's going to be some downturns, but overall there has been something, not exactly, but something like an arrow of progress through improving the human condition.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was he or another speaker who said that they didn't believe necessarily in this arc of human progress as something that's inevitable, but it's inevitable if we embrace Enlightenment values.
Yeah.
Humanism, taking care of this world, not worrying, letting the other worlds, if there are them, take care of themselves. Feminism, equality, all of these things, they don't just mystically happen in some kind of arc of progress. We're working for it. And let's give some credit to the secularists and free thinkers.
And also because once you get the freedom, once you're accustomed to the freedom and the progress, we don't want to give it up. We don't want to go back to times when it was so bad. So there is a tendency for the species to want to keep improving.
And that was the thing that I enjoyed about his speech so much, was that it was so optimistic and uplifting, and he had a lot of data to back it up. It wasn't just, fluff. It was, we are doing this, and we can continue to do this. And so I can't wait for the book.
And if anybody wasn't at the conference, then you wouldn't know that we had a very interesting balance of very sobering speeches about the reality of where we are now with we don't have a clip of today of Kathy Pollitt, but she got our Forward Award from The Nation. We had Michelle Goldberg, and then we had comedy with Paula Poundstone.
Yeah, which we could not record. That was in the contract.
Right, but we do have some photos that we'll show next week. And then we also had Comic Relief with Roy Zimmerman and Julia Sweeney.
Yeah.
We don't have photos of that, but we will next week. But at the end of Michelle Goldberg's talk, on came, as you said, Steven Pinker with, it wasn't comedy, but it was a very positive intellectual response. Not negating the reality of where we are, but just reminding us that things have greatly improved. And I think you were talking to me, I think one of the statistics that surprised people the most was about working mothers.
Yes, it was that working mothers today spend more time with their children than stay-at-home mothers did 50 years ago. And that was one of the tidbits, one of the many statistics from his speech that kind of just hit me.
Because they were working so hard. They didn't have the appliances and the conveniences back then that they
Or
have
the
today.
kids were running. I was speculating that we used to be able to run around free and then just make little forays to our house. You did it, I did it. And so maybe the mothers got a little relief that way, and the working mothers today, working outside the house, feel like they have to spend all their time with
So
their
speaking of children, don't forget that the convention opened with a 13-year-old girl who's an activist in her school.
An activist, a feminist.
So we do have a few
Kelly
pictures.
Helton.
There's Kelly.
Kelly
and then,
Helton.
She's going to change the world.
Yeah, and she got a Student Activist Award for lots of activism in her community. She's the daughter of Jim Helton, who's himself a very good free thought activist.
In Kentucky.
And I think, do we have another photograph there, Bruce? It seems like there's Cara Santa Maria, who got our Free Thought Heroine Award, and we will have clips of her next week.
A truly talented science communicator.
Yeah, did we show Katha Pollitt? Yeah, there's Katha, and she gave a phenomenal talk, a very carefully crafted talk that I'll really enjoy rereading. And so there, I'm not sure if we hit all the speakers, but we will by next week. And we hope that people will make plans early for our 41st annual convention, which takes place November 2nd and 4th, 2018 in San Francisco. And that's going to be at the Hilton Embarcadero, so that's going to be a very beautiful spot. And
so all the convention videos that people want to see can actually be viewed online at this link as they go up, so you should check back frequently. I don't believe there's a video up yet, but we're going to be putting them up as soon as we can get them.
Oh, I'm gaming for Friday of this week, and if not, check back. It'll be soon. And we appreciate that fast turnaround by our video producer, Bruce Johnson, because usually we haven't had them up quickly. So that's really nice for people who are there, but we hope you'll spread the word, share some really phenomenal speeches. And
we do have a few questions if you're
or
up
comments,
for it.
maybe, if people
So
were there.
the show is Ask an Atheist, so...
So you're up for it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm up.
So one of the questions is, do we learn about a lot of violations from members at our convention?
And the answer is yeah.
Yes, it's one of the very popular things. Members like to come up to the legal team, and that's what we're there for, and say, "Hey, I've got this violation going on, or is this a violation?" We're happy to chat. That's we are their watchers on the wall, so we're happy to do that.
And they
it
sometimes
happens every
say,
years.
"You'll never believe what they're doing in our kids' school," and I say, "Yes, we will."
It's pretty rare that we haven't seen it nowadays, but we still are. Every year we're surprised by something. So we also have Nicole Niebler asks, in our opinions, what are some of the best ways to get young people involved in secular activism? And I know one of the things that we do is we offer students who want to come to our convention, they are allowed to come in for free.
Yes, they are. And then we are going to be doing a more formal student scholarship for travel or hotels, and where you can sponsor a student. We just have to make sure that students show up for those sponsorships, because sometimes we've had a small turnout of students. But the other thing is, of course, having more student speakers, and we're going to have a lot of young speakers next year. I've already started doing a lot of invitations, and
they've been popular in the past. Some of the best ones we've had have been the student speakers: Max Nielsen, Jessica Alquist, Kelly Helton at this one.
Tom Sheehan.
Yeah, they all give really great speeches, and everybody loves to see.
And then Nicole, you can look for, hopefully soon we're going to have a mobile-friendly version of our newspaper, Free Thought Today. And when we are ready with that, we're going to start offering free student memberships up to the age of 25, and hopefully make it just more easy for students to disseminate this information and attract more students that way. And of course, we also give student activist awards, and some of them show up as Kelly did at our convention. And we are also underwriting 4 student essay competitions, and we give over $40,000 a year to a variety of students, and we showed some of that during our little PowerPoint presentation of the year in review, which we'll probably show in another show.
Well, that's the problem. Students are with us. I mean, the younger generation is less religious than ever, but they're very poor and they're very busy, and it's hard for them to find time to come to a convention like ours.
And who knows where one of those student essay awardees will end up? You know, they could be in this seat right
yeah,
here.
like someone we got an essay from a guy named Andrew in Colorado, remember that?
Yeah, and it was a really good essay. Second place, but I circulated it to our staff and to our attorneys that we worked with, litigation attorneys, so we were very glad you entered that competition.
It was fun.
It would have been first place, but you had too many semicolons. That's what it was.
I shun the semicolon, Dan, so you have to come up with a better excuse than that.
Well, we had a very good first place essay as well.
No, it was an excellent essay.
It was maybe not as legal, but it was very good too.
It was.
Now, I wanted to say that for Nicole, if you and other students check back at our website soon, by January, we should have information up about student scholarships to come to the San Francisco convention. And we hope that we'll fill in with a lot of students in California too.
I hope so. And so we have another question from Phil Monroe. He's asking if we will follow up on the Neosho, Missouri cross and make sure that when the city divests the land that it's not a sham. And for those of people that may not know, the Neosho cross is the one that we showed in the video there. It's this.
It's lying on the hill. It's not really upright.
It's a gravel in the shape
gradient.
of a cross, and they actually did some really creepy things with it. They would light it at Christmas with Christmas lights, but then they did what was called a living cross during the Easter time, and they would have elementary school kids go stand in it, which is just, I don't know, that creeps me out.
Yeah, but the short answer is that Rebecca Market has already written a very strong letter, a follow-up letter, an open records request. We wanted to find out what the sale, did they get money? We wanted to see the records of the city's requirements when they divest themselves of land.
Do they have to have open bidding and something like that?
We don't think there was. So we're following up completely on that.
Because we could have
Phil.
bid on it.
Yes.
And wasn't Phil at the convention? I think so.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming to the convention and watching Ask an Atheist.
And I think that's all we have for today, but we're definitely going to do a bigger update on the convention, I think, with some better videos and fuller videos and more pictures.
Photos.
And
yeah, and we also, the October issue of Free Thought Today will be going to the printer next week, and we've got an 8-page spread of photographs, some of them by you and by Chris Line and by our convention photographer, Ingrid Law. So if you didn't get to go, it was fabulous, but you can feel like you were there.
And a really fun moment was that tailgate party on the roof of the Monona Terrace, a beautiful day on the roof overlooking Lake Monona with, it was called the Forward Band.
Forward Marching Band.
Forward Marching Band was out there playing live music, and there was food, and there were drinks, and that was just a really an exciting time.
Yeah, and we will plan to do that again in 2 years when we return to our the Monona Terrace in Madison for the 2019 convention. We'll definitely do a tailgate party and hope that we can nab the Forward Band, who got their beginnings in several years ago when there were a lot of demonstrations in front of the Wisconsin State Capitol, and they specialize in being progressive.
And just like I did this year, I'll make sure it doesn't rain that day. So we'll have nice sunny weather. I have connections.
It's later, it's in October in 2019, so you never know.
There's one more question?
Oh, I think we did get one more question coming in here, but it's not popping up on my iPad.
So,
well, I think we're going to just have people look for the convention recap in Free Thought Today. Now, that's only for members, so if you're not a member, you should join FFRF.
Or you can get a sample copy of our newspaper. You can just go to our website and click on Send Me Information, and we'd love to send you a copy of the paper.
And otherwise, we will see you next week for our episode of Ask an Atheist, Wednesdays at noon Central on FFRF's Facebook page. Join us then. Thank you.